countries have today. But Rubio wanted to convince the Europeans, most of all, much more than the former colonial countries, I think, colonized countries, I would say. He wouldn't care less for these countries.
And therefore, Ambassador Stenzel, in the same breath, can I also then say that a lot of what Marco Rubio said has to do with perhaps his own presidential ambitions for 2028. The primaries, of course, will start soon. He's catering to the MAGA voter base and also, sort of furthering the Trumpism that you talked about in making sure that there is Western dominance that is talked about.
Exactly. I think that is his understanding of what Trump wants to do with the world, and he wants to be a representative of that. How else can he beat Vance in the race for the succession of Donald Trump? So he criticized Europe in, let's say, polite ways, but he still criticized Europe deeply. He spoke of the so-called dogmatic vision of free trade, while he knows that Europeans know that they owe their prosperity to free trade, as do many countries in the world, former colonies as well. He spoke of the overused term of the so-called rules-based order, knowing quite well that for us the rules-based order is the United Nations, which already Trump tries to replace by his Board of Peace, with himself at the top of the future replacement of the United Nations. So I think he wants to go even beyond what Trump has been saying so far in order to prove that he would be a good successor. Maybe he would, but not in the sense that Europeans would hope for or other countries in the world, you named a few, would imagine.
So my final question to you, Ambassador Stenzel, is how is then Europe planning to respond to Marco Rubio? Because this will increase. The kind of statements that are coming in from Secretary Rubio at the moment will increase with elections coming up and, of course, as I said, the presidential ambitions that he himself has.
That is why I think Europe will now try to make its own positions very clear. And you've already seen that in the hours after the speech of Rubio and the next day, when it became clear that the majority of the countries represented there and institutions represented there made clear that Europe must now become more independent, not independent of China or Russia or whatever, but independent of the United States. It must become a geopolitical power of its own right, not in the sense of colonialism of former days, but in the sense of representing multilateralism, the rules-based order, and what the United Nations stand for.
Okay, I'll leave it there. Dr. Volker Stenzel, let's wait and see what happens in the next few weeks and months. Thank you very much for joining us and sharing your perspective.
You're welcome.
Shifting our focus now, Bangladesh is ready for its first elected government after Sheikh Hasina's ouster in August 2024. Bangladesh Nationalist Party chairperson Tariq Rahman is all set to take oath as the country's next prime minister. But power comes with challenges and Rahman is facing a lot of them. The newly elected parliament will be sworn in during the early hours on the 17th of February. Following that, Tariq Rahman will take oath for office of prime minister. This will mark the end of the interim government's rule. Tariq Rahman's return from 17 years in exile and the BNP's comeback to power is a saga of political turmoil and violence. Tariq Rahman now faces the task of fixing internal ruptures and stabilizing international relations.
We have few challenges we have. We have a very serious challenges to tackle the economy of the country. Then we have challenge to ensure the law and order situation in the country. We must ensure its safety for the people.
In a first act, after securing the landslide victory, Tariq Rahman invited world leaders to attend his swearing-in ceremony. Heads of state of China, India, Saudi Arabia, Pakistan, Turkey, UAE were all invited, along with other regional and global partners. India's Prime Minister will not be attending the event, citing prior engagements, but the Speaker of the Lok Sabha, Om Birla, will be there on his behalf. Ties between both South Asian countries remain strained after Hasina's ouster. And now Tariq Rahman has promised Bangladesh first policy, saying engagement with global powers will be based only on national interests. Incidents of political violence have not subsided even after the conclusion of the elections. At least 5 cases of post-poll violence have been reported in local media. Tariq Rahman is making efforts to calm the tensions. In fact, he's also met with Jamaat chief and his political rival Shafiqur Rahman and the student-led party NCP chief Nahid Islam. But can he bridge the gap in political ideology that separates them? Only time will tell. Moving on, Nepal's race to power is back on the streets with the election campaigns outset for its March 5th parliamentary elections. The poll was triggered by the 2025 youth-led uprising that toppled an elected government and forced a political reset. Nepal's Election Commission has opened a tight 2-week campaign window until the 1st of March midnight. Nearly 19 million voters are registered, with thousands voting for the first time to shape Nepal's House of Representatives. More than 3,400 candidates are contesting for 275 seats, out of which 165 will be chosen directly and 110 will be allocated through proportional representation. Prior to the D-Day, familiar faces of power and new challengers are colliding in Nepal. Former Prime Minister KP Sharma Oli is seeking a return to office, leading the Communist Party of Nepal, UML, back into contention. Nepal's oldest party, the Nepali Congress, is now campaigning under new leadership of Gagan Thapa. The royalist groups aligned with former King Gyanendra Shah have also entered the campaign, with hundreds rallying to reinstate the overthrown king. Disrupting the power field is the 4-year-old Rashtriya Swatantrata Party, led by former broadcast journalist Rabi Lamechane. The party has made a headline move by naming former Kathmandu Mayor Balendra Shah as its prime ministerial candidate. This move has set up a high-stakes face-off with Oli in his home constituency itself. The polls follow, remember, the 2025 Gen Z protest that led to the collapse of the Oli-led government. Former Chief Justice Sushila Karki was then installed as the interim PM, tasked with stabilizing the state and delivering the vote. Her role ends once a new parliament is formed. And as of now, security has been tightened across the country, with monitoring teams enforcing the campaign mode. With rallies rising and alliances being tested, Nepal clearly has entered a defining political stretch. And at this moment, we're slipping into a short break. After the break, we get you the latest from Hungary, where election battle is underway between Trump-backed Viktor Orban and the opposition leader Peter Magyar. We tell you who's leading the polls. Stay tuned.
From the bustling trading floors of Wall Street to the vibrant exchanges of Asian stock markets, WION breaks it down for you to make sense of what's happening, as we reveal the key factors behind events, strategic battles, and the game-changing business decisions that shape the world. We bring you all of this and more on World Business Watch.
The race to power in Hungary is heating up. Prime Minister Viktor Orban's high-pitched Eurosceptic stance is up against an opposition candidate who wants Hungary to align with the European bloc. The two rivals are pulling the strings in different directions, and to make things more interesting, the US president has chosen his favorite as well. Hungary is heading to the parliamentary elections on the 12th of April this year. Viktor Orban's Fidesz party is up against the opposition party TSO. Parliamentary elections are normally the internal affairs of a country, but this time the campaign in Hungary is a mix of both politics and geopolitics. Viktor Orban has accused Ukraine of interfering in the upcoming elections, and he says that the European Union is a bigger threat to Hungary than Russia.
We must get used to the idea that those who love freedom should not fear the East, but Brussels, and people should turn their anxious eyes toward Brussels. Fear-mongering about Putin is primitive and unserious. Brussels, however, is a palpable reality and a source of imminent danger.
Orban has received an endorsement from the US President Donald Trump. The US Secretary of State Marco Rubio has also reiterated Trump's commitment to Viktor Orban's victory during his visit to Budapest.
President Trump is deeply committed to your success because your success is our success. Because this relationship we have here in Central Europe through you is so essential and vital for our national interests.
Challenging Orban for the office of Prime Minister is opposition candidate Peter Magyar. He's promising to bring Hungary closer to the European Union and Ukraine. As per the latest polls, Magyar is leading the parliamentary election race with 48% of public support. Orban's Fidesz party is trailing with 39% support. If Viktor Orban fails to flip this trend, he could lose his grip on power and the Prime Minister's seat after 16 long years. A massive political row has erupted in France. This is after a 23-year-old was beaten to death in the city of Lyon. The brutal act had sharp political overtones because the youth was said to be affiliated with the far-right movement, and his attackers were members of the so-called ultra-left. This incident took place on Thursday. The 23-year-old, identified only as Quentin, was said to be providing security to some far-right protesters. The protest was against Rima Hassan, a member of the France Unbowed Party, or the LFI. Hassan was scheduled to give a speech at a university in Lyon, and the people Quentin was guarding were protesting against her. But supporters of the LFI reportedly clashed with the protesters. And amid the violence, Quentin ended up in the hospital in coma. He succumbed to his injuries on Saturday. Lyon locals are in shock.
I think what happened is truly horrible. It's really tragic, as you say. It happened just down the road from me, on Caillefol-Chiron. To end up with this result over political issues is truly pathetic. It's really awful for the young man who lost his life.
His death has sparked outrage among the French right. Massive rallies have taken place all over France. People have been demanding justice for Quentin. Right-wing politicians, meanwhile, in France, have been condemning the LFI.
Let me make it clear that we are the ones being attacked, meeting after meeting. At the end of January, once every 2 days, during the last 3 meetings I attended, we were attacked by people who call themselves Nemesis or Nous Vivrons, who come into the rooms shouting, rolling around on the floor, trying to get hit, and each time we push them back and laugh at them.
Essayez de prendre des coups et à chaque fois nous les repoussons en nous moquant d'eux.
In fact, we will keep getting you more from let's move on and get you more from the battlefield. A war within the system. Ukraine's fight is no longer just against Russia alone. The country is battling an enemy within. A former energy minister in Ukraine has now been detained while attempting to leave the country. $100 million in funds was laundered. The corruption scandal is now a big problem for Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky.
Ukraine bleeds on two fronts. Russian missiles pound the east, but betrayal strikes from within. The war-torn nation begs the West for billions to survive invasion. But former energy minister German Galushenko was nabbed at the Polish border. He was forced out of his government role last year. He was among the officials named in a corruption scandal. He has been charged with money laundering and involvement in a criminal group. A massive $100 million corruption scandal has engulfed Kyiv. The scandal threatens to engulf Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky's administration. He had swept to power before Russia's full-scale invasion on the promise to root out corruption. But now his closest aides are getting named and shamed. Earlier, Zelensky's chief of staff, Andriy Yermak, resigned after his home was searched. In January 2025, Ukraine's military uncovered a massive scam. $40 million were embezzled, which were meant for the purchase of 100,000 mortar rounds. The detention of a former energy chief at the border sends a chilling message. Even in wartime, there are those who allegedly see crisis as opportunity. For Ukraine, the battlefield is not just in Donetsk or Kherson. It runs through ministries, state firms, and procurement files. The question now is stark. Can Kyiv win both wars, at the front and at home? Bureau Report, WION, World is One.
Brazil's most spectacular cultural celebration has now turned into a political flashpoint. Rio de Janeiro's iconic parade has triggered a debate about political protection in cultural events during election year. Samba School opened the prestigious parade season with a dramatic tribute to sitting President Lula da Silva. A colossal metallic robot in Lula's image towered over the avenue. It symbolized his rise from poverty in Brazil's northeast, from metal worker to union leader and then finally to head of state. The performance celebrated workers' rights, social welfare and policies closely associated with the president's leftist legacy. But the political imagery did not stop there. One float depicted a giant clown in prison stripes behind bars. It was a clear reference to former President Jair Bolsonaro, who is currently serving a 27-year sentence for plotting a failed coup. And with that, it's a wrap on this edition of Race to Power. But as always, we'll keep getting you updates and analysis from across the world. Thank you very much for joining us today. Bye-bye.
And welcome to a brand new